Thank you very much, Linda, for that introduction, and thank you very much for the invitation today. What I'd like to do today, and having chatted to Linda and Helen, is just kind of run through a little bit around the overall business travel industry and what's been going on. So this is looking at it from a very holistic view across the entire industry, just to try and set the scene a little bit over the next 10 to 15 minutes. So the agenda I've got today, I just want to, for those that I haven't spoken to before, I don't know how many of those there are out there, just a little bit of background about the Business Travel Association, and then get into some of the looking backwards, but then also looking forward around what the industry needs to do to bounce back, the challenges and opportunities, and one or two other bits and pieces that I hope you find useful as you get into your discussions with your TMC partners later on and into your RFPs next year. So the Business Travel Association is the trade association that represents the travel management community. We have a membership, actually said over 70 on here. We've just signed more. It's actually going to be up to about 90 now, because we've just signed Uniglobe, which has 20 odd agents within their community. So we're up to over 90% of all travel management companies in the UK are represented by ourselves at the Business Travel Association. But more importantly, that we've evolved over the last couple of years, in particular, with all the problems to really represent the business travel industry on a wider basis. And we have 55 partners in the business travel industry, which include airlines such as British Airways and Virgin, all the main technology GDS companies, hotels, train operators and train management companies, car hire, and moving into financial providers as well as professional services. So it is really a very broad church that we represent around the industry. We also have a buyers advisory group, which is somewhere around about 25, 26 buyers of corporate travel from all different sizes of companies who help us to discuss the issues and raise issues and come up with solutions. And we also have a generation BTA board, which is, I mentioned because it's important in some of the conversations I heard, or the issues Linda was mentioning, is that is a board of next generation, middle management and below, working with us to make sure the industry is both attractive to new talent and that we retain new talent as part of the role that they do. So they're the generation kind of level below that are helping us make sure that we have enough people within this industry to service you moving forward. We run a number of events, including two major conferences, one of which is overseas, and most importantly is the role of the BTA is collaborating. So we spend a lot of time bringing people together, such as airlines and TMCs, throwing a meaty subject in the middle that is a bone of contention, and then trying to sort it between the two parties. I spend a lot of my time with political engagement this week. Straight after this, I've got a couple of MP meetings and minister meetings next week, as well as having an all-party parliamentary group on business travel, which we are the secretariat for, which allows us to put any of the issues around business travel to backbenchers, and they're filtered through to senior government. It's been a bit tricky, clearly, the last few months with the engagement, as it's been changing quite significantly. But one of the roles is to show the value of business travel to the UK economy, but equally is to change the view of many in government that business travel is very much just around senior directors going off and signing multi-million-pound deals. Really relevant to this sector, just as important the academia is to business travel and to the UK economy. Do a lot of time promoting business travel in the media and within the public, and defending it and promoting what the work that we all do in this sector and why it's important. And clearly issue a lot of papers. So you were talking about sustainability, a big area for us. Yesterday we launched a white paper on sustainable aviation fuel, which is very much designed for me personally, which is talking about subjects such as that in layman's terms that I can understand. And so it helps educate both the industry, our customers, and on a wider scope. So that's kind of the background to what we do. That's some of the things that we do on a regular basis. So again, important in terms of we're representing the industry around many of the issues that you may face, including expansion at Heathrow, particularly relevant at the moment around the rail network and the poor services that you've got on the main west coastline. And I spend a lot of time with the rail industry. But more importantly, let's get back onto the core subject around travel management and what's happened. And I think it's really useful at this point, given some of the problems that we've all faced around service levels, just to take a little bit of a review of where we've come from. So this little climatic here is really just reflecting over the pandemic that the business travel industry, and that is my members, so the travel management companies that you use, went through a period of 725 days of travel restrictions, which meant 725 days of where they were trading below 20% of their 2019 revenue levels, many below that. It was just those that had a big domestic travel looking after key workers that actually raised it up to 20%. So there was 2 years of virtually no income. And I think also what is really key, if you look to the right-hand end of that infographic, where on the 18th of March 2022, all COVID restrictions were moved. I was actually in a meeting with the DFT with some other industry people on the 15th of March, I think it was actually, where we were talking about what was the summer going to look like, and they really said no major change. We're going to look to try and remove some of the restrictions, but it still will be quite difficult. 3 days later, all conditions were removed. This is what fantastic, but clearly the industry had some issues around staffing levels at that point because there was no indication that we were going to start trading again, even when we did, what the kind of levels would be. So here, for some context for you, when we went into this in March 2020, we had 78 members. We came out of it in October 2022 with 76. Point of that is saying that we didn't lose anybody in any particular numbers. And what we did see throughout that period was mergers and new entrants coming in throughout 21 and 22. And there's still significant interest from the private equity industry about investing in travel management, particularly now as they see the recovery coming, that it's a good opportunity. Point of that is saying the industry did remarkably well, considering that we had two years of no income virtually coming in to come out unscathed, relatively so, this year. So again, relevance from what happened is we came into it for the whole industry. That is all of our members. The 78 there had about 14,000 staff. In January of 2021, in the depths of the Omicron, we'd lost 50% of that workforce, so they were down to 7,000. And again, really importantly to know, of that 7,000, around 80% of those were furloughed. So 5,600 of that 7,000 were furloughed. So that was them sitting at home pretty much, not doing too much, getting paid for the government and losing some of the skill set and not getting involved. So very tiny numbers were actually involved in the business on a day-to-day basis. And very much reflecting what Linda mentioned at the beginning there. This is October, that TMC numbers are somewhere around about 12,000, so almost 80% back to where they were before. Then coming into it in March 2020 combined, we had about 32 million transactions. In March 2021, it was down to 6.5 million transactions estimated over a 12-month period. Again, saying that the numbers were 80% down, so a significant change from where we were. So post-pandemic numbers, this is really October. I know we're kind of halfway through November, but I haven't got any indications just yet around that. But air revenues are back to about 80% of 2019 levels, but air passengers are back to about 70% of 2019. And by this numbers, I'm referring to those that are booking through business travel management companies, not the entire market. I think what is really interesting is that online booking was up across the membership at somewhere around about 70% pre-pandemic. It's back at 40% and climbing, but not going back as quickly to that 70% level as some may have anticipated, because there is still a lot of complexity around travel. And this is what leads into why I think you might be experiencing some issues right across the travel management sector. So it's not nobody in particular, and this is not an excuse. It's just that, frankly, putting it out there as to what the issues are the industry faces. So in 2022, we're seeing 1 in 4 bookings are being changed or cancelled, and that's multiple times. Pre-pandemic, it was about 1 in 11 that were being booked, then changed or cancelled. So a significant change in the amount of volume of servicing a booking. And the average number of calls or emails pre-booking is now 6. It was 2 before the pandemic. So 3 times more conversations, whether that's on email or by phone or by WhatsApp or whichever way that you do it, for making a booking ahead of the time. So remember that we've got around about 80% of the staff before. Revenue levels are up, but the actual amount of touches and transactions has significantly increased and increases. And I just wanted to make this is a point, it goes back to May, but it's relevant because at May, we were at the peak of the cancellations at Heathrow due to the cap. And we did a survey across all of our members. And in that month alone, they spent collectively 5,500 man hours on just amendments and cancellations. That's not new bookings. That's not any follow-up, not any other work they do for you. That was simply on managing the changes that were being created by the cancellations and changes at the airports around the UK and globally. And on top of that, we're handling 40% more downstream travel changes. So people, when they might be in the US, for example, having to change or do stuff coming back has gone up significantly as well. So we don't kind of just end when the passenger leaves their home. It is also at the other end where there is disruption. Add on top of that, our wonderful domestic rail network at the present time. Business travel hasn't headed back to the tracks in the same way as leisure, or the same way business travel has actually headed back to aviation. The rail domestically is only at 40% of pre-pandemic levels. So you can see from the difference between air and the top number there to the bottom is really difficult. Some of that has been really driven by the significant rail travel disruptions that we're going through all day, which our members are handling on behalf of their customers, on top of the air disruption we had earlier in the year. So there was an awful lot of servicing needed to be done by a much lesser number of people than we had before. This is context for you. I think, again, important around the bounce back ability of the industry. That is the UK outbound business trips, as it said on the top of the slide, going back to 2002. There was a major flip in business travel in the financial crisis around 2008 to 2010. You can see the decrease there. You look to the right-hand side and you can see the difference between what was seen then as a really deep crisis for business travel in 2008, 2009, compared to what it has been in 2020 and 21. And yet we're already back. If I was to put a 2022 number on there, we'd be back up at 2019 levels. So the speed of recovery has been incredible, but that puts strains on the system because you didn't have the reduced impact that was around in the financial crisis and the gentler return back. It was off and on, quite literally that way. So when we look at the industry, there were certain areas that never stopped traveling. So these are just examples. So marine, oil and gas, and other kind of key workers were traveling all the way through. Then we saw journalists and the kind of news and media really getting back in because global events have to be moved. Next off the grid was small businesses because many reasons. They're clearly nimble and hungry to get out and see clients after 2 years of not being able to, but equally they have less governance than maybe a huge corporate around health and safety and duty of care. Not to say they don't care as much, it's just they have less process to go through. Then we saw the manufacturing and engineering coming back as the next trend of people coming to get back to business travel. Then NGOs and charities started to return. Sports started moving around again, student academia. And then last...
You've got 3 minutes.
Okay, all right. And then large corporates. Now I'll get moving around. I just wanted to bring in, we've just done a temperature survey of our TMC partners. You can see staff recruitment and retention is the biggest issue that our members see for 2023 around the geopolitical instability and cost of living crisis. The challenges and opportunities on the left-hand side, the challenges, clearly resource, getting new people in, retention, and getting a more diverse workforce. Cost of living crisis continues to be a concern for us. We talked about increases in cost. It's important to know the industry is facing finance and bonding restrictions because it's seen as a risky industry travel because of the restrictions. Well, the ice you can read of yourself, supplier inventory still remains not back up to where it was, and sustainability and Brexit, the concerns around Brexit now really only beginning to kick in as people traveling again. But that throws in some really great opportunities as well around this, around redefining the relationships and the partnerships that you've got with your TMC and revisiting how that works moving forward. I just wanted to talk about airport disruption because caps were a big issue around it. There are still below the wing issues in terms of recruitment, which is your baggage handling and the rest of it. And you can see why there has been a bigger issue for business travel than anybody else is that business travelers book within 14 days with reduced inventory. That means the price is pushed up because the seats have been sold earlier, and that will be see where it is. Short-term higher cost up to about 30% more for aviation than it was before. I expect that to come down, but it will remain significant. And it was good to see Heathrow have not put caps in for Christmas, but we shouldn't write it off again for next year. but our members are working alongside airports and other operators to manage your way through this as frictionless as possible. And then this is the last slide, and I'll finish up. It's just to kind of say this is what a TMC does. This is a graphic we produced for government last year in there to just kind of show the importance of a travel management company. The actual booking of flight, which is effectively in the middle there, is only a very small portion of what the industry does on behalf of business travelers. There's a whole piece, both pre and post trip, that we manage. And again, that just refers back to the recruitment area. And if you want white papers, particularly on sustainability, they're all available for you on the website following that address. And hopefully I've just squeezed in under the wire of 3 minutes, Linda.